Hi, this is Mike from Mike's Unboxing Reviews and How To, and today we're going to take a look at the MSI B450 Gaming Plus Max. Keep watching to find out more. Okay, on today's video we're going to be taking a look at this board from MSI. This is the B450 Gaming Plus Max. Now this is the updated version of the Gaming Plus to support the latest and greatest of the AM4 range of CPUs. Now the Max versions across the range of the MSI boards essentially add an extra feature where it allows you to BIOS flashback and also have a larger BIOS size to contain all those different AM4 SKUs. So let's take a look at the box and then we'll go through the insides and then go through my thoughts on the board itself. Now first of all, before we take a look at the box, let's talk about the price. Now the price of this at the moment is around about £80 here in the UK, which brings it down about £10 to £15 cheaper than its nearest rival, which is the Tomahawk version. Now the Tomahawk version and this version, the Gaming Plus, are essentially exactly the same motherboards. So we all know that the Tomahawk boards are rated extremely highly, so this board is pretty much identical apart from a few cosmetic tweaks and also the lack of a USB Type-C connector. So with that out of the way, let's take a look at it in more detail. So first of all, on the front of the board, as you can see, B450 Gaming Plus Max, support for Ryzen 3000 desktop processors, and it's using the AMD B450 chipset. With that, you've got support for PCI Express 3.0, Windows 10 ready, all those kinds of things. Flipping around onto the back of the box, we've got a little bit more detail. So Gaming Plus Max again gives you a layout of the board. You've got DDR4 Boost, you've got steel armor on the PCI Express ports, AMD Turbo USB, so we've got a load of USB ports on here, USB 3.2, Gen 1 and Gen 2, and also some of your older USB 2 ports as well. You've got Audio Boost, it's using Japanese capacitors on the audio chipset, so really good sound quality there. It goes into some detail about the BIOS flashback button, which we'll take a look at a little bit later, and also it highlights the actual USB port that you need to use, which is pretty important. Also you've got support for M.2 drives, so NVMe or SATA type drives, you can use those, although as is usual with the B450 chipset, if you do choose to use one of those on this board, you do lose access to a couple of your standard SATA ports, but again, we'll take a look at that a little bit later. Also a nice feature of this board is the easy debug LEDs. So there's 4 LEDs on there, so when you're trying to debug a system, should it fail to boot for some reason or other, then the LEDs will give you a good pointer of what is a problem, whether it's a CPU, RAM, GPU, power, that kind of thing. But again, we'll take a look at that a little bit later. And also in software, we've got the X-Boost software, which gives you a little bit more of a boost in certain applications and games within Windows. So let's take it out of the box and see what we actually get. So first of all, in the box, we get the motherboard itself, which is actually a pretty weighty board. But we'll put that to one side for now and check out what else we get as accessories. So first of all, you get a True Gaming pamphlet. Then we get a True Gaming badge from MSI, so you can stick that onto your chassis if you want to, just to show your love for the MSI. Also, you get the option to actually review your product as well. There's a special feature here for the MSI shout out. You can take a look at that. Yeah, thank you for your purchase. You get your case standoff notification leaflet, which again, we'll go into more details when we take a look at the board. You get a quick installation guide, a DVD with all the drivers and software and all those kinds of things. You get the user manual itself, which is multi-language and goes into, again, more details on all the individual parts of the motherboard. You get a pair of SATA cables, one right-angled, one straight, and also you get your M.2 screw. Now the actual mounting pillar is actually pre-mounted on the board, so you don't have to worry about that too much, but obviously don't lose the screw just in case you need to install a M.2 drive in your system. So starting off as a tour of the board, in this top section we've got our usual suspect, the 8-pin CPU additional power. Now again, depending on what CPU you're using, you may wish to use an 8-pin. You can actually just use a 4-pin on certain CPUs, such as the lower end Athlon series, that kind of thing, but okay, ideally you're going to be wanting to use an 8-pin connector on there. Then we've got this rather large heatsink. Next to that at the top we've got our CPU fan connector, and next to that we've got 4 RAM slots. Now this supports up to 128 gigabytes of RAM, and RAM is a little bit of a kind of bone of contention on the B450 chipset. So depending on which CPU you're using, this is going to tell you what type of RAM you can support. Now if you're using a 2000 series CPU, you can use RAM up to 3466 megahertz in overclock mode. If you're using a Ryzen 3 processor, 3000 series, then you can actually go up to 4133 megahertz. Again, before you buy your RAM, check out what CPU you're using. Obviously, you can manually tweak the settings, but as per the qualified vendor list, some RAM is not guaranteed to work at higher frequencies with the older CPUs, so do bear that in mind before you make your purchase. So moving further around at this top section, we've got our first of our 5050 12V RGB headers, and next to that we've got a water pump fan header. You can use that as a water pump header or a additional fan header if you want to. So for those front mounted fans in your chassis, you can hook them up to this connection if you wanted to. Also underneath that there is another fan connector, both of those 4-pin PWM, so no problems there. Moving down, we've got our debug LEDs, which is just next to your ATX power connector, which is a 24-pin version. Moving on down, we've got yet another system fan connector, so again another 4-pin PWM. So plenty of access for fans. Even if you've got a case with 3 or 4 fans on the front, there's no reason why you can't connect those up pretty easily. And also control all the fan speed settings, both in the BIOS and in software using the Dragon Center. In this center section, you've got your mounting area for your AM4 processors, which is your usual system with the mounting lever, and also you get the pre-installed clip mounts. Those are all there. You can take those out and install your own CPU coolers or different mounting systems if you wish to. No problems whatsoever there. And the backplate is actually quite nice and sturdy. Moving slightly down, we've got our M.2 selection. So with this, you can use SATA or NVMe based drives, no problems whatsoever. And you've got the full width of there available for larger drives, should you need to. Like I said, the pillar is pre-installed, and just up from that, we've got yet another fan header connector. So this is going to be ideal for your rear case mounted fan, 120s, 140s, whatever it may be. So nice and easy to connect up. That is one of the things I do like about these Gaming Plus boards, and also the Tomahawk boards. MSI do tend to put an awful lot of fan headers on there, so you can connect up lots and lots of cooling. So moving down slightly, we've got our first of our PCI Express graphics cards ports. We've actually got 2. This does support Crossfire, should you wish to use that method. We haven't got support in here for SLI, because that is an NVIDIA technology, it's not licensed, so you cannot use that, unfortunately, just a single card for NVIDIA cards. So moving across slightly, we've got our SATA ports. Now you've got 6 SATA ports in total here, all at the fastest SATA speeds available. If you do choose to use the PCI Express port for your M.2 drives, you do actually lose the ability to use ports 5 and 6 on the SATA, which are these top 2. You can still use the other 4, no problems whatsoever. So 5 drives in total, or 6 if you're using SATA. Again, for most users that should be more than sufficient. Just across from the SATA here, we've got our chipset and chipset cooler. Again, nice heavy duty heat sinks on all of these type of components. So moving back to this side, we've got our additional PCI Express x1 ports. You've actually got 4 on this particular board, which is a slight upgrade from the Tomahawk version, which only has 3. So maybe if you're a streamer and you've got your PCI Express capture card, then this may be useful to have those additional ports on there, especially if you've got a larger PCI Express graphics card. But again, the differences between the Tomahawk and the Gaming Plus are pretty much negligible. So moving further down, we've got our front panel I/O connector. There you've got the 4-pin one for your speaker, and you've got your normal setup for power switch, hard drive LED, all those kinds of things. Moving down, we've got our USB 3 header. Now that supports USB 3.2 Gen 1, so for your front panel connectors, that kind of thing. I actually quite like to have it in this bottom section rather than being on the side section. For me, it just seems to be easier to manage and easier to use, and leaves the kind of bulky cable work here purely for your power, and have all your I/O routed down to the bottom. So next to the USB 3, we've got a pair of USB 2 headers, so you can connect up to 4 USB headers onto there. Moving across, we've got another system fan. So again, crazy amounts of cooling potentially available here. Again, depending on where you put your fans in your case, lots and lots of options for connecting up without having wires absolutely everywhere. Next to that, we've got our TPM port, which pretty much no one's ever going to use. And actually going back to here, we've got the BIOS battery, and also right next to the BIOS battery is actually where you short out the BIOS. So if you put a setting in incorrectly and you want to reset the BIOS, you can quickly put a jumper or just bridge that with a screwdriver or something, and you can completely clear your CMOS. So moving on, we've got another RGB header. So again, 5050 12V RGB, depending if you want to connect up your RGB at the top of the case or the bottom of the case, or in fact if you want to do both. And also that is controllable within the Dragon Center software. So lots of flexibility and lots of control, which is really nice to see. Next to this, we've got 2 pretty much useless ports. We've got our COM port and also the LPT printer port, should you wish to add either of those for legacy I/O. And in this bottom corner, we've got our audio connection, so HD audio connection, and all of this is isolated track-wise to keep the audio nice and crisp and clean. Other items of note on here is the Gaming Plus logo, which is at the bottom, which actually is rear lit. There are LEDs on the back of the board, so this section is pretty much clear, so you can show that off in your build if you wanted to. Although for me, it's in a slightly odd place because I think probably you can have a graphics card there, and some of the kind of less attractive cabling is going to be at the bottom, so maybe you don't want that particularly to show off down there. But again, it's there if you want to use it. You can disable it again in the software if you really wanted to. So let's move around to the I/O on the rear. Now, starting in the top corner, we've got our flashback button. So if you want to install a new BIOS and you don't have a CPU, all you need to do is connect power to the board. You need a USB stick with the BIOS on there in the root of the drive, and also the drive has to be formatted FAT32. And you can put the drive into this bottom USB port, and then when it's powered, you can press the button and you can go through the BIOS flashback process. Also, you get notification LEDs on the debug, so you can go through and watch that. Again, we will be doing some details or some more videos actually on that whole process, so if you want to find out how that all goes, then click on the subscribe button, click on the chime icon, and you'll be notified of future video releases. So go more into the I/O, so we've got the two USB 2.0 ports here. Again, that's the BIOS flashback one. In normal Windows operation, you can use it as just a normal gaming port for keyboard, mouse, whatever it may be. You've also got your legacy keyboard connector, PS2 type connector, which actually supports either keyboard or mouse should you wish to use it. Next to that, we've got our DVI-D connection. So if you're using a APU, which supports either HDMI or DVI outputs, then you can connect into there. Maximum resolution on that one is 1920 by 1200 at 60 Hertz. Next to that, you've got your HDMI connector, again for APU use. Then you've got your USB 3.2 Gen 1 ports, and next to that we've got another two USB 3.2 Gen 2 ports. So for your faster devices, maybe streaming cards, capture cards, that kind of thing, or data transfer, these are the ones you're going to want to try and use if you can, supporting up to 10 gigabits per second. Coming up to that, we've got our LAN port, so it's gigabit LAN using the Realtek 8111H chipset, so no problems there, pretty much industry standard. Then we've got our audio jacks, so you've got the full complement of jacks here built in straight away, so 6 ports. The highlighted red one is the one most of us are probably going to end up using, which is your general line out, which is amplified, used for speakers, headphones, all those kinds of things. But if you want to go to town and have a complete Dolby 7.1 setup, there's no reason why you can't. You've got all the jacks there available for your surround sound speakers and all that kind of thing. Moving around onto the back of the motherboard, so pretty much usual deal. You can see all the tracks are done quite nicely. The heat sinks actually, if you do wish to remove them, the top ones are actually held in place with screws, so if you want to replace them and add extra thermal paste or pads or whatever you want to do, screws to remove those, no problems at all. The one for the I/O is the kind of push pin connectors, so you can squeeze those and pop those out. But what is quite a nice feature on MSI boards, which they've started doing on quite a few now, is these sections here where it says it's a case standoff keep out zone. So if you've got any case standoffs, motherboard standoffs, that kind of thing, in these areas, you want to take them out. So although having those on the back when you're putting the board in, you can't actually see them, so it's a good aid to sort of let you know that you shouldn't put them there, but again, once you've got them in, it's a bit late and you can't really see it. But it's a nice addition anyway. So that is pretty much it of the tour of the motherboard. Essentially, a fantastic board. Personally, I would rate this towards the higher end of the B450 chipsets. MSI B450 chipsets are probably amongst the best on the market. Asus ones being very good as well. But the VRMs, the cooling solutions, and the ability to actually use really high-end CPUs on these slightly older boards. So if you don't want to go down the route of the X570 motherboards, which do carry quite a price premium still, you can pick up one of these high-end B450 boards, stick on the latest and greatest AMD processor, which at the time is the 3950X, which is certified to work with this. Although, to be honest with you, extra cooling would be required for those VRMs. If you want to check out more information about the VRMs and cooling and what is suitable for boards, then you can click on the link up over here and you can take a look at a video I did previously. But essentially, this board has been rated and reviewed and has come out very, very well. Again, very, very similar technology and setup to the Tomahawk board. And in fact, the only real difference I can see is on the back here, there's a USB Type-C connector on the Tomahawk board, and you lose one of your PCI Express connectors. Other than that, a little bit of aesthetics with the red on the board, but other than that, the two boards are pretty much identical, although they're not in price. The Tomahawk board does generally command a bit of a price premium. So if you want to save yourself a few pounds and maybe put those extra funds towards another part of your system, maybe a RAM upgrade or whatever it may be, then this is definitely worth checking out. So there we go. This has been the MSI Gaming Plus Max motherboard. I'm really impressed with it. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, give the video a like and don't forget to come back for more content like this. So if you've got any comments or questions about this motherboard or anything like that, please feel free to check out the video description below, or if the question hasn't been answered there, feel free to put something in the comments section and I'll try and answer your questions as quickly as I can. But in the meantime, I've been Mike. This is Mike's Unboxing Reviews and How To, and hopefully we'll catch you in the very next video. Thanks for watching.